All right, man. It's another great day to talk about triathlon. Let's do it.
It is. It's another, well, I'd say beautiful, but it's cloudy. But it's in the 40s, and I'm all about it. It's Halloween. It's October 31st. The year is 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 810.
8:10, yeah. When you said it's Halloween, my first instinct was to go back and put some kind of like Halloween songs under the open. But I'm not going to do that because
don't do it, man. Don't.
That's
do
what
it.
everybody does. They just kind of go for that cheap thrill now.
Yeah, and neither one of us, like if we did this, if we did our podcasts, on video, I can guarantee you with 100%, like certainty, neither one of us are going to be dressed up.
Dude, I've been wearing the same hoodie for like a week and a half. I mean,
listen. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, listen,
it kind of is, but
wearing the same hoodie every week. But it's the life that we live, and I think we're both pretty happy and proud of it. So, but yeah, it's Halloween. Good luck to all the parents out there. Keep track of your kids tonight. Count how many times you yell at your kids. Did you say thank you? And get out of their grass. And that I mean, I think I don't drink anymore, obviously, but I think for most parents that could be a solid drinking game if you're into that. Is take your kids around and how many times do you allow? Did you say thank you or get out of their grass or get off their lawn? And you probably won't make it past like the 6th house. You'd be pretty much hammered.
Yeah, I think you would, man.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of good ways.
And then most importantly, please remember that any child under the age of 14 has a very, very high likelihood to have an allergic reaction to Reese's peanut butter cups. So as a parent, it is your duty and responsibility to confiscate all Reese's peanut butter cups from your kid's bag and prevent them from potentially having, going into anaphylactic shock. Even if they have never had this issue before, I can't implore you enough. Make that decision, keep your kids safe, and do yourself a favor and confiscate all Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Keep on the lookout for the Fifth Avenues, maybe some mini Fifth Avenues in there, maybe some hidden small York peppermint patties, a nice little refresher, little palate cleanser on the Halloween trek. And above all else, avoid black jelly beans, licorice, Twizzlers, the scum of the earth when it comes to Halloween candy.
You're big on those Reese's cups.
I'm huge on them.
Yeah,
I'm huge on them. But yeah, so what before we get into the topic for today, what is your most overrated Halloween candy?
Wow. It's been so long, man. I'm an old man. I don't remember Halloween. Like maybe, see, this is all going to be divisive shit. You're just trying to stir something up here. I can see what's going on.
No.
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Have a discussion.
Reese's peanut butter cups is my most overrated. How's that?
I don't know that we've ever had like a stark disagreement on this podcast. We made it 810 episodes.
Yeah. I don't know. They're all right. I like.
They're all right.
Crackles. Crackle bar.
I mean, most overrated to me is probably I don't know. I was gonna say Snickers, but on Halloween, Snickers I think are overrated when you put them in like the community of all candy bars. But having said that, like I love nothing more than like on a post bike ride, like a nice Coke and a Snickers. So I don't know that I can bash Snickers that much. I'd probably say even they might even be the same category, but anything Sour Patch related. It's like give me straight chocolate. I think those just it's sour, makes your your cheeks feel weird. But whatever, we'll move on.
No, speaking of candy and sugar, speaking of candy, Halloween candy, you wanted to talk about ketones today.
I did, yeah, especially about candy, yeah. So
Woo!
Man, it's been a long time. I usually don't have the breath and frankly the time to get into debates, but I was feeling a little bit froggy this morning. No one pissed in my Cheerios, but I was feeling a little uh yeah, I feel a little bit froggy participating in some very heated, not heated at all, but discussions. We had a guy in the close Facebook group, Chris Brewer, asking about, ketone IQ, which a lot of, I mean, they're all over it. If you're on Facebook at all, you see a lot of it. I mean, honestly, just like you do of like any other. Listen, you don't see anything more advertised than you do from the feed. They've got everything, and so just got a little bit of a date on there. Had another guy, Neil Bayless, who I think is a Skip Bayless's brother. He just, went straight black and white and called him useless and snake oil elixir. And we just had a friendly, very friendly and polite discussion, how you should have discussions these days, right? Thoughtful and thought provoking and interested in listening to another person's side and coming to an agreement that, we all make our own decisions. And as Hayden always says, we all make our own choices. And it got me thinking, and we even, I think, touched on this a little bit in terms of the podcast we did yesterday, right, about Kona, and how age groupers are so willing, for whatever reason, are so willing to copy and paste whatever professionals do, right? And it could be from what their fueling strategy is to what they put in their body to the aero helmet they use to the bike they use. And while we can rip on companies for using influencers because every one of them does, pro triathletes, they're number one for most of them, unless you're like the top 10 best ones on the planet. Like their number one job is to be an influencer, and that's how they make their money. So the best thing that you can ever do one year, for one, if they're supported by a nutritional company or the feed or they're on a certain bike, like that is the best one. They've never been more comfortable. And if for some reason that bike sponsor drops them, well, guess what happens next year? Their new bike, best bike ever. It is 100% the fastest bike they've ever been on. That's all about the money. That's all about chasing the dollars. And that's what every business is. And I think that's also why like this sport can be so confusing, because there is so much to sift through. And so like, and I'm not going to talk strictly just about ketones today or the product itself, but because there are so many products out there that are promoted, marketed, influenced, and not just from a nutritional standpoint, but also from, when it comes to bikes and wheels and aero setups and integrated bottles and shoes, aero helmets, calf sleeves, like, which wetsuit is right for you. It's so fucking noisy when it comes to, and I think that's honestly like my least favorite part about triathlon is the decision making when it comes to gear, because there is so much out there. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I think there are some things on this planet that are probably great for you, and then some things on this planet that are terrible for you, and that might be the total opposite for the next person. And that's why I think it's so difficult, whether you're, and I guess most of the podcast would be about just kind of, because I also do believe that everyone has, like, their body is optimized to accept and deliver certain results based on what you put in it. And that might be totally different from the person next to you. Even if you look the same height, same weight, same background, it's just about how you're made. And the same can be said about, bikes and bike positioning. Some people's are more flexible than others. Some people, I mean, we talked before we went live today about, aero helmets, right? Everybody wants to talk about, like fueling and nutrition. We'll talk about that. But, bike helmets, a bike helmet that might save me 15 watts might lose you 5. Like calf sleeves might, save you 15 watts and it might save me 0. Like that. And those are just facts. Like if you've seen like wind tunnel results for people, they're all over the place. Like you being, you could take, and, to the same breath, I could say take, a really, really fast bike. For me, like the frame itself is really, really fast. But if the setup and the cockpit can't be adjusted to the way that I like my flexibility, my morphology, it's going to be actually slower for me. And in the same breath, you could find a bike frame right? Because the most advances in the bike tech industry aren't from the frame. I think they've kind of maxed out on that. It's from, I mean, hell, I mean, disc brakes are slower than rim brakes, but from an aerodynamic standpoint. But a bike that on the frame side might be slower for you, right, or slower compared to another bike at any yaw angle period. It's just a slower bike, but allows you to get in a more comfortable aero position and allows for a better integrated cockpit that is aero, well, then that's faster for you. You know, wetsuits are very similar, right? Like, you know, you have different wetsuit companies, made from different material. They have different thickness levels from start to finish. You know, there's just so much to sift through and so much to think through. Not even like getting into like the topic of, you know, nutrition and the billion things that are like coming out now about these. And the thing is, like, if you listen to a lot of coaches across the industry and sports scientists, most of them would argue that while technology, like, you know, when you look at super shoes and bike tech and how much faster, you know, the bikes are these days with integrated hydration and everything and fueling sources, and then bike positioning, right? The ability to reduce drag, like, is at an all-time high. And then, you know, again, super shoes is also a huge saver. A lot of them would also say the biggest, you know, one of the biggest advances has been how some people fuel. And that's how you're kind of seeing some of these like really, really crazy performances. And you've got but having said that, like, you look at the different spectrum in which you're seeing some of these incredible performances across all sports. And they're also done very differently depending on who you look at in like, you know, one incredible performance A could be a, you know, a low volume trainer that barely does, you know, X, Y, and Z, but is super high carbohydrate and takes in like 190 carbs an hour. And they're shattering records and breaking all, you know, and kind of defying what we thought possible. And then just next door, you might have the same person as a very high volume person that is on low carb that does it a totally different way that's seeing similar results. And then you got everything in the middle. And I think the problem is, and we kind of talked about this before we went live, is I think that because there's so much out there, social media, I mean, our podcast, right? You know, we're part of it. You know, like we're part of that the machine now that is unlimited, minute by minute, hour by hour access to whatever information, whatever topic, subject, debate, argument, information you want you can have it in a minute. You can download a podcast, you can listen to it, you can read, you can, you know, go online, you can search, you can research articles, you can get online, you can be influenced by advertisements, and you can talk to people. It's 24/7. And so I think we've never been more curious into finding out what really works, you know, and out there, because I do think there's been, you know, high level advancements in technology and fueling and nutrition. You know, new things come to market, like, you know, bicarb from Martin, or, you know, ketones. There's so many things out there that are coming to light and making people more and more and more curious about what might work and what might not work. And then the people you see the most, right, and you hear the most are also the extremes. And that's making us, again, very, very curious, because who doesn't want to be better? Who doesn't want to be faster? Who doesn't want to be healthy? Who doesn't want to look better? Who doesn't want to have like some sort of a cheat code, right, for their own physiology and their own, you know, how they're just made up? Everyone wants that. So we're all looking for it. But in that curiosity, I think we've also become, you know, our curiosity level as humans has like exploded by like 100 times, but our ability and desire to hunker down and pursue what we're curious about, to find legitimate answers for ourselves, is at an all-time low. We are just not not everyone, but a lot of us are not in a place where we want to put forth the amount of effort it takes to, you know, figure out exactly what it is that works best for us. And because what that does, number one, is requires a lengthy amount of time and commitment to whatever thing you're trying to pursue, whether it's a diet change, a nutrition change, a training change, even an equipment choice. It takes it to me. It's like it's the same as going. You go in, you get your bike fit. You're on the bike on the trainer for 10 minutes. You're like, oh, this feels good. This is it. I feel, man, I feel faster. I mean, this bike looks great. And 95% of it's placebo effect. Man, I feel really, 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 really good. You're on it for 10 minutes. In Ironman, you're out there for like between 5 and 7 hours. So it's the commitment to being on there for like a very long period of time, and that's the same as researching it. And again, I love people that are inquisitive and curious about finding ways to optimize the way that they live, their health. You can call it hacks or cheat code, whatever you want to call it. I think we all have that in us, and it could be different, but it's the ability or inability to stick with it for a long period of time. Have that level of curiosity, be willing to explore, but you can't explore it in 24 hours. And most people get distracted about 48 hours in, and either one, chalk it up to the best thing ever, chalk it up to it doesn't work for me, or they frankly just get distracted by the next thing and then they move on, and that's what they want to go with. So I think I just kind of cruised through most of the podcasts right there without shutting up, but those are just a few. And I know you're all in on stuff like this, in terms of trying to figure out ways to better live and to be healthier. And yeah, I think it's an interesting topic and a very difficult one for the busy professional that's, married with kids and also trains to take the time and effort to do their real due diligence to figure out what is Mike Turali's cheat code, because your cheat code is probably totally different than what mine is. And it just takes time to figure those out.
Yeah, man. First of all, I made some shitty coffee this morning. I can tell you that.
How bad was it? I mean,
I don't know, man. I think I tried a new one and I poured that out immediately because I got caramel and some other thing. I didn't realize it. But anyway, back to your point. But that was my point initially, was that, and you said it at the end, but we're so distracted, right? I can sit there and watch. I've always been kind of a YouTube guy, so I'll watch a YouTube video and I'll be like, that's it. That's what I need. That's the solution to all my ills. And then like the next day I'll forget that I even watched it. And it's so weird. And then you kind of go back and you're like, man, I got to try. So to your point, I think that it's real easy to sort of, read headlines or watch a video and be like convinced in the moment that makes sense to you. I think we're all kind of trying to reaffirm our gut instinct or feelings or something like, or, they talk about echo chambers and how we're looking for reinforcements for our thought process and things like that. But ultimately, you really have to figure it out, I think, for yourself, no matter what it is. And yeah, I'm always, they call them hacks, but I've always been that way ever since, I was a kid. I was just always really interested in health and trying to figure out shit. And, I love talking with people about it and trying to figure out solutions. A lot of times with athletes, just like what works for you and what feels good and, all that kind of stuff. And I think about how many times I've sort of, tried something, and I think it gets a bad rap too, is, you can try it and I think, maybe it doesn't feel right or whatever, but you got to stick with it. You got to give it a legitimate shot, right? I mean, one of the clearest pictures to me is I always used to think about, and I knew in my mind, I was like, cold plunging, that's good. I feel, but I was always afraid. I mean, I kind of dabble with it, and I never really gave it a real run until last year, and started getting in the fall and went through the whole winter. So I actually had a decent sample size on it. And, frankly, I think too, because sometimes improvement can be so incremental that you don't even recognize it sometimes. So you're so deep into what's going on, and then you're like, okay, I kind of feel similar or whatever. And then we make these changes in our lives and it's just hard to recognize, I think. And that's why I've always been such a big fan of writing and documenting like that, and trying to remember where I came from, because, different days, just, I don't know. I mean, it's so easy to get in a loop of thoughts, I think. And until we really kind of, stick with something and give it a real shot, but then you're like, God, you're not seeing, marked progress or something like that. So you dump it, but that might not be the actual thing to do. I think that, I mean, personally, I want to find the answers for a lot of shit. And then if I don't seem to find it immediately, it's just this impatience that takes over. So you try a new thing and you give it a few days or a week or whatever, and you're like, I don't know, this doesn't seem like it. But man, if it's about changing patterns, and, like, I know for a fact that if I do certain stretches and poses and shit like that, it really helps my hamstrings and my hips and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I think it takes energy to kind of get in there, and you're like, well, I feel pretty, it's sort of like you improve a little bit and you think, well, I got this under control now. So then you let it go again. And I think those are the things sometimes that really, you mentioned, like, your new setup, and it feels great for 10 minutes or whatever. You think you got the problem solved, but you really don't know. And plus you got to stick through it. And I've always said, I mean, I haven't changed my, bike position in, a ton. And I kind of feel like sometimes my body, when I give it a shot, it kind of absorbs into that spot sometimes and feels fine. So I don't know. I'm just not a big, gadgetry type of person. In fact, I always feel like I know I have to get down and do the work. I have to be consistent with it. And until I am, then I don't even deserve gadgets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I do think, one of my favorite things about this sport and the roles and jobs that we have is the endless ability to be curious and to not be set, right? As coaches, like, you're constantly presented with different athletes with different abilities and different lives and different physiologies and different race schedules and different seasons of life. And that's just when you open up Training Peaks. Like, you can look at like a race roster you might have for one race, and every single one of them is different in a billion different ways. And even within that same athlete, the next year, the way you train them could be totally different because their life has changed. Right. I mean, it's like, I work with, a lot of athletes, and like even some, like, I'm like, man, we started working together. You were single, you were living the dream, you had endless amounts of time, you're probably having a lot of fun in your life. And now you're married, you just had your first kid. Things have changed. I mean, those are drastic changes in someone's life and drastic changes to someone's physiology. And so, like, that, again, that's why I love, one, the jobs and roles that we have, and being able to be endlessly curious. But that doesn't mean being constantly distracted. I think people get those two confused. Like, you need to be endlessly curious about all things. One, whether you're right and pursuing the fact that maybe you might not be as right as you thought you were, or maybe it might be right for one person and wrong for another, or that things that you once thought were wrong could be right for some people, or right in some circumstances. But and this is a societal problem. I mean, just turn on the fucking television as we get ready for an election, and debates are useless. No one wants to have their mind changed anymore. Posting on Facebook, phone call, I mean, everything. It's like no one is out there trying to get their mind changed. No one. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Everybody is as far to the left or right as they can possibly get. And it's all about how can we close our ears off and rip everybody else. And then, regardless of what side you're on, how awful your decision is and how terrible the rest of the next 4 years is going to be, regardless. And it's like we are incapable anymore of having thoughtful, intellectual conversation. And I think in society, we've becoming, technology has gotten smarter, which has made human beings a hell of a lot dumber. That might sound harsh, but it's true. It is 100% true. We no longer think for ourselves. We are so easily persuaded by the next person's Facebook post, or, because if you think about, like, like old back in the day, you'd sit in, kindergarten class and you play like the telephone game. And you get 10 kindergartners in a circle, and the first one whispers something to their friend. It's just like a short sentence, and by the time it gets all the way around the room, the whole sentence has changed. Like that is what you see every day when you basically, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, is you see one person with, average to maybe well below average intelligence search and pick and find a YouTube clip or an article from somebody probably with the same level of education or lack of education, and also same viewpoint. No facts, no fact checking, no real sources. And then it gets like passed along through the ether of the internet and social media. And then you just look and you're like, oh, this has got to be true. And why does it have to be true? Because I want it to be true. And that is exactly the same type of thing when it comes to people's curiosity or lack of curiosity in training. Is we can also get so far in one direction that we want something to be so true that we are incapable, right? Confirmation bias. Like we do not want anything to be true that we don't believe needs to be true. Same as, you're getting sick and you hop on, you go on to, the whatever the online doc website people as always go to, a WebMD. And then all of a sudden, you went from having a slight stomach ache to now you're concerned you need to go to the walk-in clinic and you're about to lose your foot. Like it just depends on like what mindset that you're in and where you're willing or unwilling to go. And I think just in general, the open-mindedness of human beings has gone way out the window. And when it comes to like being open-minded about yourself, I think it's something that you have to always be. Is open-minded about your positives, your negatives, your strengths, your weaknesses. What worked for you back, even what worked for you 3 or 4 years ago might not work for you anymore. And sometimes we hold on to these, one, belief systems, but two, these, training ways or this format in our week. I mean, coaches are guilty of it too, right? And or a bike fit or a shoe, right? Or a nutritional choice. And we are so terrified to change. One, because, hell, change is scary. I first want to tell you, change is terrifies me. But the other thing is, well, if we change, then have we been wrong all these years? And who really wants to admit that they're wrong, right? No one. But a lot of times it's not the fact that you were wrong, is that you could also be more right, or that what was right for you then isn't right for you now. And that's something I think we should always have a healthy level of curiosity, because if you're a person that looks at one thing and says, that's bullshit, there's no way, then you're not open-minded. And you're not willing to look through anything and think, you know what, maybe there is some positive to that. Let me explore that further. I've been there. I've done that in many things that I was probably far, far into. I can't get behind that. And then as I kind of like, not on purpose, even, I'm not going to give myself any credit, like on accident, kind of behind it became more and more, maybe even influence is the right word, like influence in a positive direction towards certain things. I'm like, all right, maybe there is something to it. Maybe I should look a little bit further into it. And then looking like, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is, a better way. But also at the same breath, what makes it so hard is that I think that there's also not just one specific way to optimize yourself or maximize your, capability, or, find these marginal gains or find your own hack and cheat, whatever you want to phrase it. There's probably like 5 or 6. And so I do think it's more of like a melting pot of these decisions that we make every day. because even then again, like you can't get tunnel vision and think that one thing you do is the reason for X, Y, and Z, because there could be so many other extenuating circumstances, right? And so in this kind of debate, not really a debate, but great conversation I had with Neil on the thing was, yeah, 95%, and this is where I think people get mixed up or not mixed up, but find themselves in trouble. Is 95% of the stuff is just basic hard work, consistency, listening to your body, getting good sleep, hydrating, eating right, all the basics, right? Take care of yourself. That gets you 95% of the way. So once you've done that for a long period of time, then be really curious about the extra 5%, right? Do I need a new bike fit? Does a helmet change make sense? Is investing and trying to wind tunnel testing, even at age group level, there are ways you can do that remotely, and to figure out if I can save 10 to 15, 20 watts. Swimming, does a wetsuit change make more difference? Should I go sleeveless or unsleeveless? Maybe it's now time to kind of play with nutrition and maybe different products and nutrition timing and the type of training I'm doing. What shoes can I change the shoes to help my running economy if that makes helps my speed. Day-to-day fueling and nutrition. Should I try to cut back on this and this and this, and should I try to increase this and this and this? Like all that stuff. Should I take cold showers, right? Or should I hop in the sauna? Like all these different things are that in that, to me, are in that 5% zone, right? By the bicarb stuff that Martin sells, I think that's in that 5% zone. Ketones, I think that's in that 5%. That's what I think should be endlessly curious about and trying to. But the thing is, that stuff is what you should try to implement into the 95%. But what happens for most age group athletes is that they are constantly curious and trying to change up the way that they do the 95%, and because they don't want, because let's be honest, that's the least fun part, right? That 95% of knocking out your 20-minute runs, knocking out your, going to the pool in the winter and knocking out your swims, hopping on the bike in the winter, and instead of doing a Swift race, you're doing an hour and a half of, aerobic work, doing your lunge matrix before you go run, doing your mobility, foam rolling. Like, good God, none of that's exciting, right? It's like absolutely none of it. It's, like the 95% is like going to the DMV and the 5% is buying a new car. That's like, there is no question about what's more exciting, buying a new car. No one wants to go to the DMV ever, period. So, but what happens is most people get those confused in that they have these, small things, whether it's nutrition or shoes and they don't want to change any of it because they just like it. Right. But then their training or the way they do things, we always try to cheat the things that keep us bored or that make us bored or that think we aren't, getting fast enough because we need, X, Y, and Z. And I think that's where be committed and be concrete and be firm in your belief and your motivation level of consistency and be embedded in a long-term process that is how you get better at endurance sports. And then when you have the bandwidth and the time to track and the time to see and do your own research, your coaches do research, read, write, do whatever it is, look at things. All right, what does work, but what impacts me positively and negatively? And maybe it's a simpler way to put it, right? Is what things do I know and can I identify that impact me negatively or impact me positively? A quick example from me, because it's not, again, I think you and I both at least try to do this, is that while we have a very, very, very small platform, we do have a platform, and that, anything we say could help, push someone in a different direction of that they need to go in. So this one I think is a loose one that I'm willing to say is I know for me unequivocally, and this is true for a lot of people, that if I am done eating dinner at 5:30 or before, I have much better sleep and much better recovery the next day. always, never fails. If I eat late, 7:30, 8 o'clock, it always negatively impacts my sleep. So that's not a hack. That's just observation, right? And to me, that is something like, that doesn't sound huge, but it is, because it has a trickle down effect of how you feel. And sometimes you get, you can't, I mean, no one's ever perfect, and I'm not. I mean, God knows tonight at probably 8:30, I'm going to be digging through, doing Reese's shots, and I'll pay for it the next day. But then I also know when you make decisions, like, but I know I'm going to feel better. I know that's important. Like, that is, to me, that is like knowing your own cheat code. Like last night, I knew that Hayden had hockey at 5:40, and that meant having to be there at 5:20, which meant leaving the house at 5:10, which that puts me like, damn, like that's a little early to eat dinner. I mean, even for me, that's a little early to eat dinner, like eating like 4:45, 50. But I did it because I was, you know what, I'm going to do a longer run tomorrow morning, and I want to feel good for it. And if I don't, I know that I'm going to get back. And the later I go without eating, the more likely I am to, have my meal, but also have maybe a few little, extras, on top or to the side or after. And you know what? I got the benefit from this morning. I got the cheat code. I woke up. I felt incredible. I knew as soon as I opened my eyes, I knew I felt better. Now, was it all my meal timing? Probably not. But do I know from my own history and tracking it and taking notes and paying attention that it didn't hurt or didn't negatively impact that decision? And I had a great run. Now would I've not had a great run had I eaten later? Who knows? Right? You have no one has any idea. But little things like that, right? Again, of what impacts me positively and negatively. What because I mean, I also know that there are things I've tried before that have failed miserably. I mean, failed miserably. I've probably got $200 worth of Martin products I'm never going to use again. If you want to hit me up, because I got branded. I was like, man, I know they're going to be on course at Texas. That looks like something I really need to try in. And dear God, every time I tried it, I had the worst. Like, I think we talked about, you and I talked about this off air, maybe it's on air. Heart rate, sky, I mean, everything. I mean, it's 3 times, every single time, just felt like awful. But so now I know, like, just know I need something different. And like, so that, like, you can't replace, hard work and consistency and motivation and being committed to a long-term process, but you can keep that. And then at the same time, again, if you have the bandwidth, most people don't, to look for things that might benefit you greatly, and not just one time, but repeatedly, and then see what the impact is just find those small positive things to impact you. And I always, and I would always suggest, like, start with the free stuff, right? Take a cold shower before bed, see if it impacts you. Take like some people tell you a cold shower before bed, best thing. Or some people would say taking spending time in the sauna before bed is the best thing for you, for their sleep. Again, 2 different people saying 2 totally opposite things, right? You got cold and you got hot, and they would both say the opposite things. But it's finding out, again, cheap things that work for you. Should you have more slow releasing carbohydrates before you go to bed and let you sleep better? Maybe 100%. A lot of people probably like that. Some people, should you limit carbohydrates in the evening? Probably so. Again, everyone is different. And these are all, to me, like free things, like, not supplements you buy, but just ways of life that are better suited for you as an individual, but also fall into that category of you're also more than willing to do them, which again also goes back to like how hard it is to nail that 5%, because you also have to be bought into the answer and then stick with the answer for it to end up actually being the answer.
Yeah, I mean, that 5% is a weird one. To me, I think deep belief systems are rooted in simplicity and fundamentals. And there's just so much out there that gets in our head. We talk about, is it cold shower, sauna? Is it eating early? All these things. And if we can, have that sort of like a bit of a belief system in it. I think that affects it too. And it can be anything. We have our minds exposed to so much that, like, sometimes, like last night I had a big protein meal right before bed, and it worked out great, but I believe that is a way to do it. And if I eat too early, sometimes I might be hungry and then not sleep well, so there's all this stuff. I mean, there's so many things, right? And I just like to use analogies. So one of my things with baseball is that, I can't, the regular season is so wrapped up in keeping your attention, and, they developed all these metrics now, the launch angle and the exit velocity and all these kind of things. And then I was watching the World Series last night, and what won that game? Fundamentals. What lost it for the Yankees? So it always comes back to that. It's like, this is what I think about, is sort of that metrics, all those crazy metrics in baseball. That's all for the regular season. But if you want to win baseball games, you play baseball the way it's supposed to be played, and that's what the playoffs are all about. And invariably, the team that plays baseball the old way, I mean, not even old, just the way it's always been played and, won, that's what wins games. And I think that applies to triathletes. I mean, every athlete I have that sticks is just solid and does well with their training. And, you can tweak training all you want, but like, if you're just solid and do it and work hard at it, you're going to race well, most likely, and we can get caught up in, I mean, it's so easy to get trapped in all these things, man. And I think it boils down to, it's just a distraction. It's something that it's kind of, trying to take an easy way out. I do it. Everybody does it. It's like, man, yeah, maybe I do need some new shoes. But, like when I'm running, well, I can put on any shoe in my closet and it won't bother me at all. It could be old shit. I've still got old shoes from back in the day that I'll run in sometimes. If I'm in good running shape, it's not the shoe, I mean, we can say it is all we want, it's just, but it's kind of like our heads are full with all this stuff. I mean, they've talked about Instagram algorithms and things like that. You could be talking, just hanging around the dinner table saying, I should work on my balance. Maybe I should do some tight roping or something. And it'd be kind of a joke, but the next thing you know, you're on Instagram and there's some tight roping class offered, and you're like, damn, that might be real. It's like, it could be anything. And it's just so crazy to me that we can get trapped in all this stuff, but not actually do it. And I think that frustrates us too, because, it's like I talked about before, I've got, I don't know, 100 books, and sometimes they just depress me because I look at them and I'm like, damn it, I read that and I didn't even really do anything with it, or I didn't even try it, or I didn't even read it. You just see the title. It's like, try this, change your life or whatever. And it didn't work because I didn't even read it and I didn't try it. But I think a lot of that shit out there, it probably all works. And I think it's rooted in this sort of repetition. It's rooted in consistency, and, all these plans for life maybe aren't even that bad, but it's like we kind of move from one to the other all the time and try different, equipment or nutrition and all this kind of stuff. But it really boils down to our work ethic. And I think, back to what's the first thing, one of the first things I ever learned in school, when they would say, don't believe everything you read. And that was like in the, way back in the day. And I think we forgot that. It's like, sometimes there needs to be a healthy dose of skepticism and stuff. And it's so easy to kind of like just jump from one train to the other and be down the road. And it's so easy to kind of, if you get caught on that, it's so easy just to let it go and to be like, that didn't work out. And it's like, well, you keep trying different things and people just move on. So it's, I don't know. I think it really is a world of distraction. And I think if we can really, like I emailed my athletes yesterday about play, are you making this fun? Are you having a good time with, are you finding things that, because when you're a kid and you're playing, there's nothing. I mean, it's like it's really building a connection with your body and your mind, and you're having fun and relaxed. And I think that's how you get better in this sport, is to really enjoy kind of the basics of what you're doing and just go out there and be good with it and be solid with it and have fun. Because if you're not, then you start looking for all the other, cheap fixes. That's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, because I think a lot of times we see things and we think that we think or we somewhat already believe that they will in fact help, but we almost don't want them to, because it's just adding one extra thing to our plate that we need to figure out. And you see, no matter what it is, like someone else is doing, or you see an ad,
it's
and
like
you're
a sabotage.
Exactly, right? For a split second, you're like, oh, fuck, like maybe there is something. Nah, fuck that, dude. That's snake oil. That's bullshit. Like, that's just, no, everybody's trying to make $1 from it, because now you can be done with it and move on. And sometimes you might be right, but sometimes I think it's just we do that to protect ourselves from, like, oh, Jesus, one more thing I got to try to figure out, because there's already so many things to try and figure out. So instead of just, like, writing everything off all the time, or adopting everything all the time, like, it's okay to table it, come back to it. You know what? There might be something to that. I mean, I've got like a notepad, and I've got, I don't, good God, like 20 plus links on it for things I've like come across, whether it's articles or supplements or products, or just links. So I kind of like, you know what, like that looks interesting to me, but I got no time to like really do my due diligence on, like, is this legit, or is this legit for me? Could it be legit for anybody? And then I'm just gonna table it, and I'll come back to it when I have some free time. And sometimes I come back to it, and then sometimes I come back and I'm like, and this is kind of how I know it's probably not for me. I come back to it and I was like, what the fuck did I save this for? It's like, and so I think that's like the maybe that's like the triathlete's version of everything in your Amazon cart has to stay there for 2 weeks before you purchase it. And how many things after that 2 weeks you would still feel the need to purchase, or if you just wanted to purchase it because you wanted to have it right now. Let's see, Amazon Prime. Ooh, I can have it in 4 hours. Yeah, bring it here. Yeah, on its way. But if it says, but it's funny, right? Because if you look at something, you're like, out of stock or 2 weeks, guess what? You don't even want that shit anymore. You're like, ugh. And then we say something like this, must be a sign. And you're like, yeah, the sign is you're impulsive, and you only wanted it because you wanted it right now. And so that's, I think, just a great way to, instead of writing everything off, just table it. But also, one, don't write everything off, or really anything off. But at the same time, like, don't also fully go behind, one thing before you've done your own due diligence on it. And then also, is it just, for you? And then come back to it and be like, man, that really, and then listen to it or read it over and over again, and think of like the positives and negatives, like, and then figure if it's worth your time. And again, that's the problem, right? All these things take time, but you have to put time in to figure out if the things you should put time in are worth the time. And that's just not very fun, right? You're like, I don't want to, I don't want to invest in really figuring out what these things could be good for. I don't have the time for that. I'm not interested in that. I just want to take it and see a benefit, or wear it and see the benefit, or look better on it, or say that I'm doing it. Don't ask me these hard questions. But that's how we get, the best out of ourselves, is to ask these, hard questions about, certain things. And like, people are such, shoes is just a great like surface level example of like most people are like, I'm never wearing anything else, period. This is my shoe. And then as soon as they change it, they're like, I got to find something else. Like we're so very quickly to change things when we see like immediate not, or maybe just had like a bad run. Um, and so I think like with all things like nutrition, fueling, you know, explore, because I promise there are things out there that will in fact make you faster, make you better, make you recover, quicker. But none of that stuff should you put brain power and energy into until you're acing the other 95% of the stuff. Like ace all that stuff, and then the extras, or should be just the extras, right? It should be the sprinkles on top. They might really make an impact on the whole meal in a positive way, but you got to make the meal first, right? You can't hand someone a small ramekin of sprinkles and say, here's your dessert. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is this? Like, give me an actual dessert. Sprinkles are like on top. I want like the real thing, and you can't skip that part or leave it out, and not work on it. So I think that's, I do think it's challenging. I think it's challenging for every aspect of everyone's life, whether you're in relationships or you're in a profession, right? Where, the new thing is to do this, or you've seen one person have success, like no one writes articles anymore about the standard way that's pretty much always been successful to, do A, B, and C. It's boring. It's like so and so invested $100 at age 23 and it's now a billionaire. And then you're like, oh, I want to read that, instead of, 33-year-old starts late, invests slowly but safely, retires at 65 with plenty of money to live the rest of his dream life. You're like, nah, that doesn't sound very fun. Nope, I don't want any part of that. It's like they're never going to do like big, no one ever tries to glamorize the boring. But, newsflash, most of what we do in endurance sports is boring. And so I think that's part of also like the marketing spiel is like, what can we do to spice things up and make what we do less? But I mean, hey, I'm guilty of that as a coach. I'm like, I know that I want this person to run this every day for a while, but if I call it the same thing over and over again, they're going to get bored. So actually, all I got to do is call it, and it's like I'm going to like totally blow myself up here, but like if I call it something different and add in a few different things, or I pre-build it, I can keep their attention span for longer. But the reality is it's the same run over and over and over again, but I'm giving it to you 4 different ways. But that's just acknowledging who we are, And, some people are creatures of habit and like it over and over and over and over again the same way. And some crave change all the time. And so it's balancing all of those in a delicate way while still being committed, but also still being curious and having fun with it. Like you said, and play and having fun with it. But you got to do you got to do a lot of things right more often than not.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately most of us probably all know the right answer, but there's just so much noise out there. And, I was listening to somebody talk about this book. It was written about the 5 biggest regrets, for that older people have or whatever. And like the biggest one was not being true to yourself and who you really are. And with the whole idea of, this left and right, screaming, I think it's just the loud people are the ones getting all the attention, but most of us are probably somewhere in the middle. And it's just difficult to be true to that. And I think we need to really kind of, just figure out a way to be more comfortable with our own skin in that regard. It's sort of like listen to your gut and stand your ground, because there's just people are not going to stop trying to influence you. And like I said, I feel like we know what's right for us ultimately, but we just keep getting distracted. And, I think in the long run, you're going to figure out, just like your example, it's sort of like we all want a quick fix and want to get rich and fast. And that's just kind of, I'm sure it happens a lot, but, for most people it doesn't. So the tried and true ways of getting, more money or getting better at triathlon are just, they're never going to go away.
Some point, maybe they will, but they're not going away today. Well, we hope we answered all of your burning questions about what products are the greatest and which ones are the worst today. I like these where we stay in the gray as much as possible. Yeah, you got anything else for us today?
No.
I like discussions like these.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years, like I said, as I write titles for these, I try to keep them less sensational than they could be, and that's like on purpose. I can
right? Yeah.
Because
be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
The reality is just get somebody riled up and then let them down. It is what it is.
That's right.
I mean, that's like the story of everything, I feel like. I mean, your Amazon thing, it's like, if it wasn't available, you'd forget about it, but it's hot. It's a hot button on the moment. And I don't know. There's just so much out there and so much information that
I know,
it's like, it used to be you'd wait 2 weeks and pick up a great book at the bookstore with your paycheck and be excited to read it, or a new album or CD. And now it's like everything's right there. So it's just not as valuable anymore.
I love that. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Good luck to everybody racing this weekend. Special good luck to all the athletes we have racing Ironman Florida. Have a good time. Hopefully the sea is calm and the wind is low and the heat is, well, not hot. But as always, love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man.
All right, man. Have a good weekend, dude.
You too, bud. See you.
See you.